He ruled the Korean underworld with an iron fist. No one questioned him. No one defied him. Until the day he walked into that hospital and saw his past standing in front of him, holding two little girls with his eyes. His crescent moon birthmark. His bloodline. He never knew they existed. She never told him. And now, with his fiancée standing right beside him, his empire, his wedding, his entire carefully constructed life is about to shatter. Because those twins, they're absolutely, undeniably his. Welcome back to Stories That Make You Feel Everything. Today's tale, a Korean mafia boss, his ex-lover, and the twin daughters he never knew existed. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button and help us reach our 1,000 subscriber goal. We're almost there, and we can't do it without you. Now, let's begin this emotional roller coaster you won't forget. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and dying flowers. Jaewon hated hospitals, always had. They reminded him of weakness, of mortality, of things even money and power couldn't fix. But his fiancée, Miranda, had insisted on visiting her sick aunt, and he'd learned long ago that some battles weren't worth fighting. Just 20 minutes, she'd promised, squeezing his hand with her perfectly manicured fingers. He nodded absently, his mind already elsewhere. On shipments, territory disputes, the Russians encroaching on his Koreatown operations. A crime lord's mind never truly rests. They walked down the corridor, Miranda chattering about wedding flowers and guest lists, her voice a pleasant blur he'd mastered tuning out while appearing engaged. It was a skill he'd perfected over 32 years of surviving in a world where showing genuine emotion could get you killed. Then he saw her. Time stopped. His heart, that cold mechanical thing that pumped blood through his body without feeling much of anything anymore, suddenly seized in his chest, like someone had grabbed it with a frozen fist. Amara. 5 years. 5 years since he'd watched her walk out of his penthouse, tears streaming down her beautiful face, telling him she couldn't live in his shadow anymore. 5 years since he'd let her go because he loved her too much to watch his world destroy her. She stood at the end of the hallway, and she was still devastating. Her dark skin glowed under the harsh fluorescent lights, like she carried sunlight inside her. Those eyes, God, those eyes that used to see through every wall he built, now looked at him with something that made his blood run cold. Pain, rage, and something else he couldn't name. But it wasn't Amara who made the world tilt beneath his feet. It was the two little girls whose hands she gripped like anchors. Identical twins. Maybe 5 years old. Dark curls, serious expressions too old for their small faces, and his eyes. Unmistakably his eyes. Jay? Miranda's voice seemed to come from underwater. Are you all right? You look pale. He couldn't respond, couldn't breathe, couldn't look away from the smaller girl's neck, where a birthmark sat just above her collar, a perfect crescent moon. The same mark he'd been born with, the same mark his father had carried, the same mark that appeared in his bloodline, generation after generation, like a signature from God himself. His vision tunneled. The hospital sounds, beeping machines, distant conversations, squeaking shoes on linoleum, all faded into white noise. Those children were his. Impossible. He'd always been so careful. He'd made sure. But looking at them now, at the way the taller twin tilted her head exactly like he did when he was thinking, at the serious set of their small mouths, at those eyes that held generations of his family's stubborn fire, there was no question. Amara's gaze met his across the 20 feet of sterile corridor. She didn't smile, didn't acknowledge him, just stood there, holding those little girls, his daughters, his blood, his DNA walking around in the world without his knowledge, and let him drown in the implications. Jaewon? Miranda touched his arm. You're scaring me. What's wrong? Everything. Everything was wrong. He had a fiancée he was supposed to marry in 3 months. A wedding planned down to the last champagne flute. A merger with her father's East Coast organization that would expand his empire from coast to coast. And he had 2 daughters he never knew existed. The taller twin whispered something to Amara. She shook her head, her grip tightening on their hands. Mommy, who's that man? The smaller one asked, her voice carrying in the quiet corridor. Why is he staring? That voice, Sweet and clear and absolutely devastatingly innocent. His daughter's voice. Amara bent down, her braids falling forward as she whispered something to both girls. They nodded, their expressions shifting from curiosity to careful blankness, a look he recognized because he'd taught himself to wear it by age 6. They were learning to hide, to protect themselves. From him? The thought made something violent twist in his chest. I need to... He started forward, his body moving before his mind could catch up. Miranda's hand tightened on his arm. Jay, the aunt's room is this way. Where are you going? Amara stood abruptly. For one heartbeat, their eyes locked across the distance. Hers said, Don't you dare. His said, We need to talk. Hers said, You have no rights here. His said, Those are my children. All of it silent. All of it screaming. Then she turned, guiding the twins down a different corridor, and they disappeared around the corner like ghosts he'd conjured from guilt and memory. Jaewon. Miranda's voice had gone sharp. She wasn't stupid. She'd built her own reputation in their world. Who was that woman? He couldn't tell her the truth. Not here. Not now. Maybe not ever. No one, he heard himself say, the lie tasting like poison. Just someone I used to know. But as Miranda pulled him toward her aunt's room, as he forced his feet to move and his face to smooth into its usual mask of control, one thought echoed through his mind like a death knell. Those girls had his birthmark, his blood, his eyes. And Amara had kept them from him for 5 years. The empire he'd built on secrets and silence had just developed a crack, and he had a terrible feeling it was about to shatter everything. Jaewon didn't remember the visit with Miranda's aunt. He smiled at the right moments, made appropriate sympathetic sounds, held Miranda's hand while the old woman talked about her surgery. But his mind was 20 floors down, in whatever room Amara had disappeared into with those 2 little girls, who had rewritten his entire existence in 30 seconds. Daughters. The word felt foreign, impossible. He was a crime lord. He trafficked in fear and respect, and carefully calculated violence. He didn't do family beyond the organization. He'd made that choice at 15 when his own father had been gunned down in front of him, teaching him that love was just another weapon people used to destroy you. He'd loved Amara once. Loved her enough to let her go when she'd begged him to choose her over the Empire. He'd chosen the Empire. Always the Empire. But she'd taken something with her when she left. Something he never knew she carried. You're distracted. Miranda's voice cut through his thoughts as they rode the elevator down. This is about that woman, isn't it? He looked at his fiancée. Beautiful. Calculating. Perfect for the life he'd built. She understood the game because she'd been raised in it. Daughter of the East Coast's most powerful crime family, groomed from birth to marry strategically. Their engagement was business. Good business. The kind that expanded territories and eliminated rivals. But it wasn't love. It had never been love. It's nothing, he said smoothly. Old memories, not worth discussing. Miranda studied him with those ice-blue eyes that missed nothing. Your old memories had 2 children. Children who looked remarkably like you, Jaewon. I'm many things, but I'm not blind. His jaw tightened. Of course she'd noticed. Miranda noticed everything. Leave it alone. Is that an order? Her voice had gone dangerously soft. Because we're not married yet. You don't get to order me around like one of your soldiers. The elevator dinged. Doors opened. Jaewon stepped out without answering, his mind already racing through possibilities, calculations, damage control scenarios. If those children were his, and he knew they were, knew it in his bones, then everything changed. He had heirs, blood heirs. In his world, that meant leverage, power, but also vulnerability. Anyone who wanted to hurt him now had 2 perfect targets walking around unprotected. The thought made his blood run cold. He pulled out his phone, texting his second-in-command. Hospital. Now. Bring 2 men. Discreet. Miranda watched him, her expression unreadable. What are you doing? Protecting what's mine. So you admit they're yours? He met her gaze. Yes. She didn't flinch, didn't rage, just calculated, the way she'd been taught. And the mother? The beautiful black woman who looked at you like you destroyed her world? Amara. Her name felt like glass in his mouth. We were together. 5 years ago. She left. Clearly not soon enough. Miranda, no. She held up one perfectly manicured hand. Let me think. They stood in the hospital lobby, surrounded by people who had no idea they were in the presence of someone who could end lives with a phone call. Miranda's mind worked behind her eyes. He could see it, the same calculating coldness he'd admired when they'd first met. This complicates things, she said finally. I know. Our fathers expect a wedding in 3 months. The merger depends on it. I know. But you have children now, daughters. She said it clinically, like discussing a business obstacle. That changes your value, your legacy, everything. Jae-won's phone buzzed. His men were here. What are you going to do? Miranda asked. Find them. Talk to Amara. Understand why she never told me. And then, he didn't have an answer. What did a crime lord do when he discovered he was a father? When the woman who'd walked away from his darkness had been raising his bloodline in secret? When every instinct screamed to claim what was his, but claiming might destroy the fragile peace she'd built? I don't know, he admitted. For once, Miranda's expression softened. They had your eyes. Your mark. Even I could see it. I know. This will hurt her. Whatever you do next. It's going to hurt her. He'd spent 5 years trying not to think about Amara. 5 years burying memories of her laugh, her touch, the way she'd looked at him like he was human instead of monster. 5 years pretending he'd made the right choice. Now she was floors above him, holding 2 pieces of his soul he never knew existed. His phone buzzed again. His men were getting impatient. Go, Miranda said quietly. Do what you need to do. But Jae-won? She touched his face, the gesture almost gentle. Don't pretend this doesn't change everything. Because it does. She was right. Those 2 little girls with his eyes and his birthmark had just rewritten every carefully laid plan he'd made for his future. And somewhere in this hospital, Amara was probably planning how to run. He wouldn't let her. Not this time. Not with his daughters. The crime lord had just discovered he had something worth more than empire. And heaven help anyone who tried to keep him from it. It took Jae-won's men exactly 12 minutes to locate them. He stood outside the door, his heart doing things he didn't recognize. Pounding. Racing. Hesitating. He'd walked into gang wars without this much fear. But this was different. Behind that door were 2 little girls who didn't know he existed, who'd grown up without him, who Amara had deliberately kept from him. Why? The question had been burning through him since the moment he saw them. Why hide them? Why not tell him? Did she think he wouldn't care? Wouldn't want them? Or did she think exactly that? That he'd want them too much? Pull them into his dark world? Make them targets before they could even spell their own names? His hand touched the door handle. It opened before he could turn it. Amara stood there, and the look on her face could have leveled cities. Don't, she said simply. One word. Entire universes of pain and fury behind it. We need to talk. No, we don't. She stepped into the hallway, pulling the door closed behind her, protecting the twins from him even now. You need to leave. Walk away. Forget you saw us. You're joking. Do I look like I'm joking? Her voice shook. Not with fear. Amara had never feared him, but with something rawer, deeper. You made your choice 5 years ago, Jae-won. You chose your empire, your power, your precious control over everything. You never told me you were pregnant, because I found out the day after I left you. The words exploded from her, loud enough that a passing nurse glanced over curiously. Amara lowered her voice, but the intensity only increased. I took that test in a gas station bathroom while driving out of your life. What was I supposed to do? Come crawling back to the man who loved his crime empire more than he loved me? That's not fair. No, fair? She laughed, the sound broken. You want to talk about fair? I carried twins alone. Gave birth alone. Raised them alone. Worked 3 jobs to keep them fed and safe while you built your kingdom and got engaged to some ice princess who probably doesn't even know what real love looks like. Each word hit like a bullet. You should have told me. Why? So you could what, Jae-won? Pull them into your world? Make them targets? Teach them that power matters more than people? Her eyes shimmered. I've worked so hard to give them normal, safe, a life where they don't have to look over their shoulders or wonder if daddy's enemies are going to use them as leverage. They're my daughters. They're my daughters. You don't get to claim them after 5 years of absence. You don't get to walk into that room and break their hearts with promises you'll never keep, because your empire will always come first. The truth of it hit harder than any physical blow. She was right. If he'd known about them, what would he have done? Pulled Amara back into his life? Made her and the twins permanent targets for every rival, every enemy, every ambitious soldier looking to weaken him? Their names, he said quietly. Tell me their names. Amara's face crumpled for just a second before she rebuilt her walls. Luna and Stella, 5 years old, obsessed with butterflies and dinosaurs and singing off-key. They're perfect, J1. Perfect and innocent and safe. And they have my birthmark. Luna does, Stella doesn't. But they both have your stubbornness, your intelligence, your way of tilting their head when they're thinking. A tear slid down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. They're so much like you, it terrifies me. Inside the room, he heard small voices. Laughter. His daughters, playing or talking, or just existing in a world that didn't include him. Let me meet them, he said. Please. No. Amara. What happens when you walk in there and they fall in love with you? When they ask why you haven't been around? When they want you to come to school plays and birthday parties and tuck them in at night? Her voice cracked. What happens when your world comes knocking and they're the ones who pay the price? I can protect them. You can't even protect yourself. You live with bodyguards and bulletproof cars and enemies on every corner. That's not a life, J1. That's a prison. And I will not let my babies into that prison just because biology says you contributed DNA. The hallway felt too small, too bright, too full of everything he'd lost and might never get back. I've changed, he said, knowing how hollow it sounded. No, you haven't. You're still the crime lord. Still choosing power over people. Still standing here in your $1,000 suit with men waiting downstairs to do whatever violence you command. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to something that felt like mourning. I loved you. God help me. I loved you so much I thought I'd die when I left. But I loved our daughters more. And that meant protecting them from the one person who could destroy them, just by existing in their lives. I want to know them. I know you do. I can see it on your face. But wanting isn't enough, J1. It was never enough. Behind the door, one of the twins called out, Mommy, where are you? Amara's hand touched the door handle. Walk away, please. If you ever loved me at all, walk away and let them stay safe. And if I can't? Her eyes met his, and he saw his own heartbreak reflected there. Then I'll run. I'll take them somewhere you'll never find us. Somewhere your empire and your power and your bloodline can't reach. And you'll lose them forever. She paused. Is that really what you want? To be the reason they spend their childhood running? Looking over their shoulders? Learning to fear their own father? The door opened. A small face peeked out. Luna. He knew it instinctively, recognized the birthmark peeking above her collar. Mommy, who's that man? Amara's expression shifted instantly to softness, to love, to protection. No one, baby. Go back inside. I'll be right there. But Luna studied him with those eyes. His eyes. And tilted her head exactly the way he did. He looks sad, she said. Then she disappeared back into the room. Amara looked at him one last time. Please, she whispered. Choose them this time. Choose them by letting them go. She stepped inside and closed the door. J1 stood in the hallway for a long time, staring at the wood grain, listening to his daughter's voices on the other side. He'd built an empire on ruthless decisions. But walking away from those two little girls might be the one choice that finally broke him. His phone buzzed. Miranda. Where are you? He didn't answer. He just stood there, caught between the life he'd built and the life he'd never known he wanted. And for the first time in his carefully controlled existence, the crime lord had absolutely no idea what to do. J1 didn't go home that night. He sat in his car in the hospital parking garage for 3 hours, staring at nothing, his mind replaying every second of that hallway conversation. Luna's face, Stella's voice, Amara's tears, the way his daughters existed in a world he'd never touched. His phone had been ringing nonstop. Miranda, his underboss, his lawyers. Everyone wanting to know where he'd disappeared to. Why he'd gone silent. What crisis demanded his attention. But for once, the Empire could wait. He'd spent 32 years building power, accumulating territory, eliminating threats. He'd become exactly what his father had groomed him to be. Untouchable, feared, ruthless, and completely, devastatingly alone. Amara had walked away from that loneliness 5 years ago. She'd chosen herself, her sanity, her future over loving a man who couldn't promise her anything beyond danger and darkness. She'd been right to leave, but she'd been wrong to hide his daughters. The thought circled back, again and again. He understood her reasoning. God, he understood it. Every word she'd spoken in that hallway had been truth. His world was violence. His life was measured in threats neutralized and enemies eliminated. But those were his children. His blood. And whether Amara wanted to admit it or not, they were already in danger simply by existing. Because if he'd found them, others could too. The thought made his blood run cold. He pulled out his phone, dialing his head of security. I need surveillance on room 847. Discreet. No one approaches that room without my knowledge. Boss, Just do it. And run a full background check on Amara Baptiste. Employment, residence, bank accounts, everything. I want to know where she's been for 5 years and who knows about those children. He hung up before the questions could start. His phone immediately rang again. Miranda. He answered this time. Where are you? Her voice was controlled, but he heard the edge underneath. Thinking. For 6 hours? Jaewon, our fathers are expecting us for dinner tomorrow night. The wedding planner needs decisions. You can't just disappear because... I need time, Miranda. Silence. Then carefully. Time to what? Fall in love with the family you didn't know you had? Blow up our arrangement for a woman who left you and 2 children you've never met? They're mine. So am I, technically. Her laugh was bitter. We have a contract, Jaewon. A merger. Territories that depend on this union. You don't get to just... I'm not saying I'm backing out. Then what are you saying? He didn't know. That was the problem. Everything in his life had always been clear, strategic, calculated. You identified what you wanted, you eliminated obstacles, you took it. But this wasn't a territory dispute. These were 2 5-year-old girls who deserved better than a father, who operated in shadows and blood. I'm saying I need to figure this out, he said finally. Miranda was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had shifted. Less ice princess, more the girl who'd been raised in the same brutal world he had. You're going to try to be in their lives, aren't you? Yes. Even though it puts them in danger. Even though it complicates everything. Even though that woman clearly wants nothing to do with you. Yes. Another pause. You loved her. The mother. Amara. It wasn't a question. I did, he admitted. I probably still do. And me? You know what we are, Miranda. We've always known. A business arrangement that happens to include a wedding dress and a ring. She sighed. My father is going to lose his mind. So will mine. They'll see this as weakness. Distraction. Your rivals will circle like sharks. I know. So what's your plan? Because you always have a plan, Jaewon. Even when the world is burning, you have a plan. He looked up at the hospital building, at the lights and windows where lives continued, where his daughters were probably sleeping now, safe in their mother's arms. I'm going to convince Amara to let me know them, to let me protect them, to let me... He stopped, the words catching. To let you be their father, Miranda finished softly. Yes. And if she says no, she won't have a choice. That's the crime lord talking. You can't force your way into their lives, Jaewon. That's not how fatherhood works. Then tell me how it works, because I have no fucking idea. The vulnerability in his own voice shocked him. Miranda was quiet. Then, you start by showing up. You prove you're worth the risk. You put them first, even when it costs you everything. I don't know how to do that. I know, but you're going to have to learn. She paused. I'll handle our fathers. Buy you some time. But Jaewon, this changes everything between us. You know that, right? I know. Good. Now go home. Get some sleep. Tomorrow you figure out how to convince a woman who hates you to trust you with the most precious things in her world. She hung up. Jaewon sat in the silence of his car, the weight of his choices pressing down like physical force. His phone buzzed with a report from his security team. They'd traced Amara's address, a modest apartment in a working-class neighborhood, far from his world of penthouses and power. She worked 2 jobs, a hospital administrator during the day, a freelance translator at night. No suspicious contacts, no dangerous associations. She'd built a quiet, careful life, the kind of life that would shatter the moment he entered it. But looking at the photos his team had pulled, Luna and Stella at a park, laughing, innocent, protected by their mother's fierce love, he knew he couldn't walk away. Those girls had his blood, his mark, his eyes looking out at a world that would eat them alive if it knew whose daughters they were. He started his car. Tomorrow he'd go back. He'd face Amara's rage and fear and justified anger. He'd beg if he had to, negotiate, promise things he'd never promised anyone. Because for the first time in his life, Jaewon had something worth more than empire. He had daughters, and he'd burn the whole criminal underworld to ash before he let anything happen to them. The crime lord drove into the night, and for once, he wasn't thinking about power. He was thinking about 2 little girls who tilted their heads when they thought, and what it might feel like to be called daddy, even if he had no idea how to deserve it. Amara didn't sleep. She sat on the edge of the hotel bed. They'd left the hospital immediately after Jaewon's appearance, checking into a cheap place far from their apartment, and watched her daughters sleep. Luna curled on her left, thumb in her mouth, a habit she only reverted to when stressed. Stella sprawled on her right, hair everywhere, 1 foot hanging off the bed, perfect, innocent, hers, and his. She'd spent 5 years trying to forget that last part. 5 years building a life where Jaewon's DNA didn't matter, where his eyes and their faces were just a coincidence, where the crescent moon birthmark on Luna's neck was just a quirk of genetics. But he'd found them, and the look on his face when he saw the twins, she'd never forget it. Shock, recognition, hunger. The hunger terrified her most. Because she knew Jaewon, knew how he operated. When he wanted something, he took it. Negotiated, maneuvered, eliminated obstacles until the thing he desired had no choice but to be his. He wanted his daughters, and men like Jaewon didn't take no for an answer. Her phone buzzed, a text from her sister. "Girl, are you okay? You never just disappear like this." She typed back, "Family emergency. I'll call tomorrow." Another buzz, unknown number. Her heart stopped. "We need to talk. Tomorrow. Name the place. I'll come alone. Jay." She should delete it, block the number, pack up the girls and run like she'd threatened. But where would they go? How far could she get before his resources, his connections, his empire caught up? Jaewon controlled half the East Coast's underground. He had people everywhere, money everywhere, power that made running seem childish. She typed, "No." His response was immediate. "I found you once. I can find you again. Let's do this the easy way." "There is no easy way. Leave us alone. Those are my daughters, Amara. You can't expect me to just walk away." Her fingers shook as she typed, "I expected you to do it 5 years ago. You managed fine then. I didn't know. Would it have mattered?" The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, yes, it would have mattered. She wanted to throw the phone across the room. Instead, she wrote, "You chose your empire over me, over us, over any possibility of a normal life. What's changed, Jaewon? You think fatherhood is going to magically make you safe? Make you someone who comes home at night instead of spending it eliminating threats and expanding territory? I can protect them. From your own world, you can't protect them from what you are." Her hands were shaking now. Luna stirred, mumbling in her sleep. Amara forced herself to breathe, to think, to not let emotion override the survival instincts that had kept her and the twins alive and hidden for 5 years. Another text. I'm not asking to take them. I'm asking to know them, to be in their lives, to help you keep them safe. I've kept them safe just fine without you. Have you? You work 2 jobs. Live in a neighborhood where I counted 3 gang tags within a block of your apartment. Your security is a deadbolt and hope. What happens when someone figures out whose daughters they are? The words hit like ice water. She'd thought about that. Of course she had. Late at night, when the twins were asleep and her mind wouldn't stop spinning worst-case scenarios. What if someone from Jaewon's world recognized them? What if a rival organization discovered the crime lord had unknown heirs? Children were leverage, weapons. The fastest way to bring a powerful man to his knees. She'd gambled that anonymity would protect them, that staying far from Jaewon's world meant staying safe. But he'd found them in a random hospital hallway. How long before someone else did? Her phone rang. She almost didn't answer. "What?" she said flatly. "Let me help." Jaewon's voice was quiet, careful. Nothing like the commanding tone he used in his world. "I have resources. Security. I can make sure nothing touches them." "At what cost?" "I don't want to take them from you, Amara. I just want—" He stopped. She heard him breathe, that familiar sound she'd memorized during the year they were together. "I just want to know them. To be their father." "You don't know how to be a father." "I know, but I want to learn." Something in her chest cracked. "This isn't fair." "I know that too. They're happy, Jaewon. They're safe and happy and innocent. The second you walk into their lives, all of that changes. Or maybe I change." His voice carried something she'd never heard before. Vulnerability. "Maybe having them in my life changes me. People like you don't change. People like me don't have daughters they'd die for after knowing they existed for 12 hours either. But here we are." Amara closed her eyes. "If I say no, I'll respect it, for now. But I can't unknow they exist, Amara. I can't just pretend I don't have 2 little girls out there with my eyes and my blood. Eventually, I'm going to find a way back into this conversation." That sounds like a threat. It's a promise. Not to hurt you, never to hurt you, but to be in their lives somehow. Because they deserve a father. Even a flawed one who's figuring it out as he goes. Luna shifted against her, small and warm and trusting. "One meeting," Amara heard herself say. "Supervised, in public. You don't tell them who you are. You don't make promises you can't keep. And if I say it's over after that, you walk away." Silence. Then, "Okay. I mean it, Jaewon. One chance. You mess this up, you never see them again. I understand. Tomorrow, the park near Riverside, 2 o'clock. Come alone or I walk. I'll be there." She hung up before he could say anything else. Before she could take it back. Before the fear and doubt and anger could override the small, stupid part of her that remembered loving him. Stella mumbled something in her sleep. "Daddy?" Amara's heart stopped. "Shh, baby. Just a dream." But as she lay down between her daughters, their small bodies warm and trusting against hers, she wondered if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. Or if maybe, just maybe, Jaewon really could be more than the crime lord who'd broken her heart. Tomorrow would tell. And God help them all if she was wrong. The park was perfect, sunny, open, full of families and laughter and the kind of normalcy Jaewon had never experienced. He sat on a bench wearing jeans and a simple black shirt instead of his usual designer suits. No bodyguards visible, though he knew his team had secured a perimeter 3 blocks out. No weapons, no armor. Just a man about to meet his daughters for the first time. He'd never been this terrified in his life. "Remember," his therapist had said during the emergency session he'd booked at 6 a.m., "children sense authenticity. Don't try to be perfect. Just be present." He had no idea what that meant, but he was about to find out. Amara appeared at the edge of the park, Luna and Stella holding her hands. They wore matching butterfly shirts and completely different expressions, Luna serious and observant, Stella bouncing with barely contained energy. His daughters. The thought still didn't feel real. Amara saw him. Her grip tightened on the twins' hands. For a moment, he thought she might turn around and leave. Then she walked forward. Each step felt like an eternity. When they reached the bench, She knelt down to the girl's level. Remember what we talked about? This is Mommy's friend. We're going to say hello and be polite. Is he the sad man from the hospital? Luna asked, his eyes studying him with unsettling intensity. Yes, baby. Why was he sad? Amara's voice caught. Sometimes grown-ups have complicated feelings. Stella had apparently lost interest in the conversation. Can we go on the swings? In a minute. First, let's talk to Mommy's friend. Amara stood, her expression warning him. Don't mess this up. Jaewon had negotiated with Russian mob bosses, had stared down federal agents, had orchestrated complex criminal operations across multiple states. But talking to two 5-year-olds? Absolutely no idea where to start. Hi, he managed. Hi, Luna said solemnly. Stella waved, already distracted by a butterfly floating past. Awkward silence. Would you like to sit? He gestured to the bench. Amara nodded. She sat on the far end, the twins between them like a buffer, or maybe like a bridge. What's your name? Luna asked, tilting her head. That gesture. His gesture. Jaewon, he said. But you can call me, whatever you'd like. That's a funny name, Stella announced. It sounds like J1, like you're number 1. Despite everything, he smiled. I suppose it does. Are you number 1 at something? Luna asked. At running a criminal empire, at making people disappear, at choosing power over love. I'm working on it, he said instead. Amara watched him like a hawk, ready to intervene at the first sign of trouble. Do you like butterflies? Stella asked suddenly. The question caught him off guard. I haven't thought about it much. You should think about it. Butterflies are important. She said it with such seriousness that he almost laughed. Why are they important? Because they're beautiful and they change. They start as caterpillars and then, boom, they're butterflies. Mommy says people can change too, like butterflies. Jaewon's eyes found Amara's. She'd gone very still. Your mommy is very wise, he said quietly. Luna had been studying him this whole time. You have the same eyes as us. His heart stopped. I do? Yeah. They're dark but kind of sparkly. In the light? Mommy says our eyes are special. They are special, he agreed. Very special. Do you have the moon too? Luna touched her neck, where the birthmark hid under her collar. Jaewon slowly pulled aside his own collar, revealing the crescent moon mark he'd carried his whole life. Luna's eyes went wide. Mommy, he has the moon! Stella scrambled over to look. Whoa! That's so cool. We match. Amara's eyes had filled with tears, because the twins were too young to understand what that mark meant. That it was genetic, familial, proof of bloodline. But they would understand, eventually. Matching is nice, Jaewon said, his voice rough. Do you want to see the swings now? Stella asked. You can push us. Mommy's arms get tired. He looked at Amara. She nodded, almost imperceptibly. They walked to the swing set, this strange constellation of a family. The twins ran ahead, arguing over who got which swing. They're perfect, Jaewon said quietly. I know. You did an amazing job. I had no choice. Her voice shook. You weren't there. So I had to be enough for 2 parents. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't change 5 years. I know, but it's all I have right now. He pushed them on the swings. Stella shrieked with joy, demanding, Higher, higher! Luna was more measured, but he saw the smile she tried to hide. An hour passed. Then 2. They showed him their favorite climbing tree. Stella tried to teach him the butterfly song they'd made up. Luna asked him careful questions about where he lived, what he did, why he knew their mommy. He kept his answers vague. Safe. But with every minute, with every laugh, with every time one of them grabbed his hand without thinking, something in his chest rebuilt itself. This was what he'd been missing. This was what Empire had cost him. He was watching Stella chase another butterfly when his phone vibrated. A text from his head of security. Code red, perimeter breach. Black SUV, Russian plates. His blood turned to ice. He scanned the park casually, every instinct screaming. There. near the east entrance. A vehicle that didn't belong. Windows too dark. Engine still running. They'd been followed. Or worse, they'd been found. Amara. His voice stayed calm, but she heard something in it. Her head snapped toward him. What's wrong? We need to leave. Now. Don't look around. Just gather the girls and walk toward my car. Quickly. Her face went pale. She understood immediately. 5 years of running had taught her to recognize danger. Girls, time to go. Her voice stayed bright, but her hands shook as she reached for them. But Mommy, Now, Stella. Luna, come here. Luna's eyes found Jaewon's, that knowing look again. Is something bad happening? Before he could answer, the black SUV's doors opened. 3 men stepped out. Jaewon recognized the lead one immediately, Viktor Kozlov, the Russian mob's most brutal enforcer. And he was looking directly at the twins. Get behind me, Jaewon said quietly, stepping in front of Amara and the girls. Who are they? Amara's voice trembled. People who shouldn't know you exist. Viktor smiled. It was the kind of smile that preceded screams. He started walking toward them. Jaewon's hand went to his phone, sending the emergency code to his team. But they were 3 blocks out, at least 2 minutes away. 2 minutes might as well be forever. Jaewon Park, Viktor called out in his heavy accent. The great crime lord. We've been looking for you. And what do we find? A little family outing. How? Touching. Luna gripped Amara's leg. Stella had gone completely silent, the first time since they'd arrived. They were terrified. His daughters were terrified. Something dark and violent rose in Jaewon's chest. Walk away, Viktor. This doesn't concern you. Oh, but it does. You see, we heard rumors, whispers, that the untouchable Jaewon Park might have a weakness now. We didn't believe it. But here you are, with... His eyes raked over Amara and the twins. Such precious cargo. I'm warning you. You're warning me? Viktor laughed. You're outnumbered, unarmed, and surrounded by civilians. What exactly are you going to do, Park? Jaewon's mind raced. His team was still 90 seconds out. Too far. Too slow. He had no weapons, no backup, no way to protect them if Viktor's men opened fire. But he had one thing. His reputation. You touch them, Jaewon said, his voice dropping to something that made grown men flinch. And I will spend the rest of my life destroying everything you've ever loved. Your family. Your organization. Your legacy. I will erase you so completely that history will forget you ever existed. Viktor's smile faltered. Because everyone knew, Jaewon Park didn't make empty threats. Brave words for a man with so much to lose now. Viktor's hand moved toward his jacket. Amara made a small, terrified sound. Jaewon stepped forward, putting himself directly between Viktor and his family. His family. The thought crystallized everything. You're right, he said. I do have something to lose now. Which means I have something worth killing for. Worth dying for. So ask yourself, Viktor. Is whatever you came here to prove worth starting a war you can't possibly win? The park had gone silent. Other families had noticed something wrong, were gathering children, moving away. Viktor's men flanked him, hands on weapons. 60 seconds until his team arrived. 60 seconds that felt like drowning. Daddy? Luna's small voice cut through the tension. Everything stopped. She'd called him Daddy. Amara's sharp intake of breath. Viktor's raised eyebrow. The world tilting on its axis. But Jaewon's eyes never left Viktor's. Last chance, he said softly. Walk away. Viktor stared at him, at the twins, at Amara's terrified face. Then he smiled that horrible smile again. This isn't over, Park. Now that we know they exist. He let the threat hang. Then he turned and walked back to the SUV. His men followed. The vehicle pulled away just as Jaewon's security team flooded into the park from 3 directions. But it was too late. The damage was done. Viktor knew about the twins, which meant everyone would know soon. Jaewon turned to find Amara staring at him with absolute horror. What did you do? She whispered. What did you do? Luna was crying. Stella clung to her mother, silent and shaking. I'm sorry, He started. Sorry? Amara's voice rose. They know now. Your enemies know about my daughters. We were safe and hidden and... She stopped, gathering the twins close. We're leaving. We're disappearing. Don't try to find us. Amara, please. You promised you'd protect them. Instead, you led danger right to their door. Tears streamed down her face. Stay away from us. Stay away from my girls. She grabbed the twins' hands and ran. Jaewon started to follow, but his security chief grabbed his arm. Boss, we need to move you. Now. If the Russians found you here, I don't care about me. He wrenched free. We need to protect them. We will. But first we need to secure you. If you're dead, you can't protect anyone. Logic. Cold. Brutal. He let them pull him toward the armored car, his eyes tracking Amara and the twins until they disappeared around a corner. Gone. Again. But this time it was so much worse. Because Viktor Kozlov now knew the crime lord had daughters. And in their world, children weren't family. They were weapons. Jaewon's phone rang. Miranda. They know. She said without preamble. Everyone knows. The Russians are already making moves. Your father's organization is demanding explanations. My father is threatening to cancel the merger. I don't care. And someone just put a price on those little girls' heads. 5 million each. Dead or alive. The world stopped. 5 million. On his daughters. His 5-year-old daughters who loved butterflies and swing sets and called him J1. Who'd just called him Daddy for the first time. And now had targets on their backs because of him. Find them, he said, his voice dead. Find Amara and the twins. I don't care what it costs. Find them and protect them. J1, do it! He hung up, stared at his reflection in the car window. 24 hours ago, he'd discovered he was a father. Now his daughters had a bounty on their heads. And somewhere in this city, Amara was running with 2 terrified little girls who just learned that their mother's friend was actually a monster who'd brought hell to their doorstep. The crime lord had finally found something worth more than empire. Just in time to watch it all burn. His phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. A photo. Luna and Stella's preschool. Empty playground. Swing sets where they played every day. And written in the sand beneath the swings, we know where they sleep. The war for his daughters had just begun. And Jaewon was about to learn that being a father in his world meant making impossible choices. Protect them by staying close, and paint targets on their backs. Or protect them by disappearing, and leave them defenseless when his enemies came calling. Either way, someone was going to bleed. The question was, who would it be?